Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today, we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's dive in. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on all our latest content and show your support. I have just finally learned about my wife speaking to another guy but no sex 10 years ago, and this speaking included sexting fully nude photos with close-ups in between the legs, but she swears she didn't cheat. So, every so often, my wife acts very suspicious for a day or two. This time through, she sent up some red flags, and I went through her phone for the first time in maybe 2 years. I am usually very trustworthy with her, and I tend to take people at their word. I have autism, so that may be why I see the best in people before the worst, but I feel like it has come to bite me in the ass big time this time. Anyways, my wife acts suspicious every so often, and I couldn't find anything when I first decided to snoop into some things on her phone, but then I thought to check a Google account she regularly uses on her iPhone currently that was associated with her Android phone before she switched to an iPhone last year, and that is where I found 2 separate apps that said it was not currently installed but was on her phone, which means she downloaded it, deleted the app off her screen, but apparently forgot to delete the rest of the evidence. One app was called Casual, which is an app for hookups. The other was called 3Fun and appears to be an app for singles or couples looking for threesomes. She absolutely denied installing either app onto her phone, even though it's clear and obvious that she's the only user of her password-protected cell phone, and she is absolutely the guilty party that downloaded it. She still denied it, and I pried for a moment but then left it alone because it was dumb, just carrying on and being openly lied directly to my face and not being able to get her to admit to her wrongdoing even though it's only her phone with nobody else having access to it. Beyond me. Those apps being there brought up old wounds that never closed in a situation that was never really resolved. Back in 2014, I know she hooked up with a coworker while she was working out of state in one state, and I was also out of state working in a totally different state. We are both insurance adjusters who used to travel to other states for work. I pried and begged back in 2014 and several times over the years for her to tell me, but she swore nothing ever happened and there was no connection between the two of them ever. She had 27 deleted texts back in 2014 shared between his phone number and her number, and for 10 years, she has claimed to not know what was within any of those texts whenever it was brought up during past fights, and my wife said she and her coworker spoke about movies and just mysteriously forgot what was within them for 10 years. Well, after 4 hours of continued lying tonight, she finally broke and said that she almost cheated on me but never did. She said she made plans to meet, but it never happened, and she said that she was sexting her coworker, who sat right next to her at work. She said she sent him full, 100% nude photos, and he shared 100% nude photos back with her. She said she sent breast pictures and a full up-close spread between the leg photos. She swears she never crossed the line with cheating and that it was only photos and conversation. She said that when my job ended in the next state, we work until done with an assignment, not a full job end. This guy became very angry and wanted to fight me, and then she was going to leave me to be with him. She also lied to me tonight over and over again, dozens of times tonight. After the 4 hours and when she finally told me about the sexting and pictures exchanged between the two of them, I asked her if she knew what was within those texts tonight when I was prying as well as for the last 10 years, and she said yes, she has always known and just kept it from me. Lies she accidentally told me tonight after telling me about the sexting and knowing about what was within those texts for the last 10 years. When I asked her why she lied for 4 hours, she said, there were details I could not remember until we sat down and I pried harder into my memories than I've ever pried before, but she has been lying to me since 5 days after she deleted the texts when they were all still very fresh within her mind and has been giving me the same exact answer for 10 years, until tonight. Including the 5 days after she first deleted them, that she did not know what those deleted texts contained but that she had just had conversations about favorite movies with him. At one point many hours into endless getting nowhere fighting, I got fed up and threatened to leave and I randomly said, when I leave, I am also telling your dad. He is a straightforward type of guy who is a very honest type of person who she looks up to, because you are going to need to find a new place to stay, and that mention of telling her dad suddenly made her come fully clean about all the sexting, the photos, conversations about wanting to meet up with him, and this is a coworker who sat right next to her at work, not some random guy potentially 100 miles away that she is sharing her photos with, who she may choose to just disconnect an app from and that may never see or hear from again. This was right next to her coworker, with whom she had shared full frontals and widespread close UPS, and they had made plans to meet, but they fell through and never happened. It seems like sharing full nude photos with the guy who sits right next to you, but then not crossing that line just seems like a lie, but maybe I'm not seeing things very clearly. Maybe I'm wrong. My mind, though, is thinking, how can you have sent these types of photos to a guy that sat literally right next to you at work while working out of state and staying in a hotel alone for 6 days of the week and not cross that line? It took her 4 hours of me prying, plus 10 years of prying, before she even came clean about the sexting, how involved it all was, and how close but not crossing the line it was. Am I wrong to think she went the full 100% on cheating? She told me she fell in love with this guy in the only, maybe, 3 months he was working in that state. We had only been married for 2.5 years when this all happened, but we had been together for 7.5 years. While working in that state, I got very suspicious of the whole thing while it was happening in 2014. The state I was working in was the next state over from the state my wife was working in, and I'd come visit on the 1 day off per week we would get. I'd come and arrive around midnight on Saturday and leave Monday at around 2 a.m. This guy began following us while I was visiting and driving from place to place. I would see him in our rearview mirror, and he would put flowers at our door, but my wife would swear to me that he was just creepy and a stalker. This guy eventually got wind that I was possibly onto them and things and knew I had been questioning my wife when I came to the state she was working in to visit her. Then this guy bought a second cell phone, got a new number, and began calling my wife with that number. She claimed it was very weird and only a one-time phone call. Me believing my wife and thinking this guy was just stalking her, I got in touch with her bosses with her company because my wife has a tendency to kind of let people walk all over her, so I thought I was doing her a favor, and she led me to believe this was the case because she was speaking about this guy sexually harassing her and telling me how horrible it was and how it made her feel. So I went forward and contacted our job since we both worked for the same insurance company. Well, next thing I know, she got called into Colorado, where the insurance company we both worked for at the time was located. She got called into an office, and they would not allow me in, even though we both worked there and were both involved. They got very strict with me and made me butt out, which threw me for a loop, but I just wrote it off as it wasn't me, so maybe since it was a work thing, I was in the wrong to get involved. I was always suspicious of that and asked questions over the years, but she has remained adamant that they were just asking her side of the story, and that was it. The end result of what she accused him of being sexual harassment was that he got separated and sent to another state to work, and they both got limited pay until the situation was resolved, and both my wife and this guy were working in different locations and in different states, and his transfer was completed. That always made me very suspicious why a man who was supposedly sexually harassing my wife to the degree she said he was got off with a free pass when we had literal proof of him driving behind us, following us, and leaving flowers at our door. I stopped working at that company, thinking they were a horrible company that lets abusers have free passes. I lost a $140,000 per every 6 months job over that, and a job that usually gives 6-month breaks, aka the best job of my life. The extra insult to it all was that I bent over backwards to get my wife that job. It's not the type of job where you apply and get hired. It's a pretty old-fashioned type of job that hires only based on word of mouth. I spent a good year talking her up and telling everybody I could think of about her. I went with her down to Texas and drove a 12-hour drive one way to study with her and help her pass her license exam. I did everything so she could have that job, and within the first month, she told me, was when she first began trying to hook up with this other guy, and by the 3rd month, she had already fallen in love with him and was going to leave me. My wife's story with our job involved remained that way until tonight. Tonight, my wife told me that the company HR called her in 2014 and said they had just spoken to him. She said she tried to play the sexual harassment story she gave me at first, but within a few minutes, she sensed that they knew she was being dishonest, and that is when she said that she came clean with the details of just how close my wife and her coworker got, the sexting, nude photos, and the conversation about meeting up. She said she then attempted to end things and he called her a bitch. Now, she never even told me a single thing until I got her job involved, and only then did she tell me about the sexual harassment, and she put the entire situation off on that coworker as the harasser and aggressor of the situation. My wife said her sexting conversations with her coworker went as far as the full nudes and speaking about meeting up, but she said, I would never cross that line. I had to pry all bits of information my wife gave me tonight out of her, and nothing was ever just offered for the good of fixing the relationship or just being honest. I honestly feel like my wife just cannot admit her last bit of guilt, being that she did cross the line and cheat, but maybe I am wrong. When we reached a certain point of going back and forth at the 9-hour mark of going back and forth and her lying to my face all night, including lying about lies she made up tonight and put into writing before lying about them again and later admitting she can't not lie, I couldn't get her to break and stop lying about what I am pretty positive had to have happened with the cheating, so I finally got fed up after 9 hours of this. And I said, okay, will you take a polygraph test and write me a letter saying that you will give me everything we own if your lie leads to a divorce, including our 5 cats as well as an additional $100,000? I said, if you are lying in your polygraph test, then I get all of that and we will take it in to be reviewed and signed by a judge with her today. It was a bit of a bluff on my end, but I am absolutely willing to take it all the way if this is how I finally get the truth from her. She sat there for over an hour, looking pitiful, and kept saying, I want to make absolutely sure I have told you everything, and kept repeating the same thing. My threat of taking everything is what made her actually sit there and think for a 2-hour further stretch before signing it. My mind wonders why she has to think on this for so much longer instead of just signing it if there really was nothing more and that really was everything. She then told me that she had for sure told me everything and that there was nothing else, but she was still not signing the paper. I said, okay, if that is everything, then sign the paper, and she wouldn't, and she just kept almost sounding it out loud and in her head and was like, we didn't do anything. I finally snapped and was like, I didn't say you did, I am asking if there is anything else? It was, honestly, the weirdest thing. It's like her mind broke and she became a broken record with the same lies on repeat. She finally said, okay, I'll sign it. Before signing it, she kept holding the paper and repeating, I didn't go with him anywhere like his apartment or anything, which to me means she did ride with him in his car, even though that was another denial she was giving me all night that she had never seen or been inside of his car. I asked her what he drove, and she told me the exact make and model of his car, the Chevy Impala, even though she doesn't even know the exact make and model of our own car. She is absolutely not a car person, and she has never known what makes and models our entire relationship. Somehow she knows his make and model and still knows it today, 10 years later. My wife is ginormous on always saying she has a shit memory and she can never remember things. It's like a lifeline for her. She used it dozens of times with me tonight, including the 10-year-old sexting situation, by saying she has no idea due to how long it's been, and that is why she can't remember, but I reminded her that this was the same exact excuse she gave me the day after, just after having freshly deleted the messages at the time as well. It took her a whole other hour to sign the paper. Am I wrong to not trust her and to be very suspicious of her? Am I wrong to think she has cheated on me and given me 100%? There is some more detail in the load of details I have already given, and I hope you can keep up with my jumping back and forth between a 2014 situation and a current-day situation that was never resolved. My wife and I moved to these apartments the last 3 months of our living in another state in 2014 due to the cost of hotels becoming a bit pricey in the states we were in, the Northeast United States for price reference, and it being cheaper to rent an apartment for the remaining months. So we went apartment shopping and looked at a few apartments while there, but everything was through the roof on pricing and wasn't going to help us save any money from our hotel expenses. Then, out of nowhere, my wife suddenly found the perfect apartment. While we were living there, flowers began showing up on our doorstep. I immediately became suspicious, like, how does this guy know where we live? It was at that time that she broke the information and said this guy's roommate told my wife about the apartments we were now living in. Just so conveniently, our apartment door was directly across the parking lot from the guy my wife may have hooked up with, and he could see into our windows from his unit due to being that close by within a 31 other separate apartment building complex. Out of 31 other buildings, we just happened to be literally right next door to this guy. How? In the very end, while holding the paper my wife had just filled out, she wouldn't sign it and just kept repeating that I didn't go with him anywhere, like his apartment or anywhere private or alone. She has been denying ever riding in his car, which to me means she did ride with him in his car, so I asked, and she said, no, I have never been in his car. I pried and asked her how she knew both the make and model of his vehicle when she absolutely does not know the makes and models of any vehicles, but she somehow knew his type of car exactly. She claims he told her his type of car, but I don't believe that. Then, to top that, she remembers his make and model for 10 years. Why? What should I do? How do I proceed? I still don't think she has fully come clean with me, even now, and I am not sure she ever will. How do we continue forward, or do we? I don't know for sure that she ever really cheated, like my mind is saying had to have happened. If she did cheat, how do I move forward? And even if she didn't cheat, how do I move forward? I'd really like to make things work, but maybe I'm too dumb and too blind to see when it's over. Sorry for the extra loaded details. I still have so many more I didn't share, or I'd drive myself insane trying to get them all down. I've already spent 3 hours typing this one post and making sure to include as many details as possible, hopefully still making sense through my giant paragraphs. Small update until I have more energy to actually give a proper update. Last night, she finally admitted to cheating once and went 100%, just like we all know she did. Now, as of 10 minutes ago, it's just 3 meetups with him for sex, but she said no more. She has yet to give me a single detail out of her own free will or the goodness of her heart. It's all just been me prying and saying I'm going to leave or saying I'm going to tell her dad. She hasn't given me one single thing for the goodness of the relationship or for trying to move on, if that's even possible at this point. I honestly don't think it is, since she can't tell me anything on her own. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.